Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Freshman 15 College Football Podcast. I know it's been a while. I took a bit of a hiatus there between the last conference championship game to right now, and a lot more has happened in between, but we are now back once again talking about the Final Four, the college football playoff, and those competing for the national championship. So for those that are new here on the Freshman 15 Podcast, we talk about the college football landscape in about 15 minutes. More or less. If you're new to the channel, like the content, hit that like, hit that sub button, and join us almost every week here on the Freshman 15. So with that out the way, let me introduce the co-host to the panel, to everybody out there. Tyler, what's up, my man?
Not too much, man. I think the entire country just survived that cold snap that we just had over Christmas.
Yeah.
So it's cold now, but things are really starting to heat up. So I'm ready to just get this thing going.
Man, you already know how it is. It's I hate it, man. So today we had like 50 degrees out here. So
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, yesterday I'm outside and I'm with my son throwing the football, and I'm like sleeveless shirt, just throwing it, feeling good, man. You know what I'm saying? Until the wind came. But yeah, man, weather's wacky. I know where you are. You're like in like the North Pole, so you get a little bit of everything all the time. So it's
we had
crazy.
negative 30 degree wind chill the other day, and then this Saturday is supposed to be 52 degrees. So you got an 80-degree swing in a week, so let's do this.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. So here we are, man, right? So we've made it through the Final Four. So as you know, we've gone all the way through the whole thing with the Freshman 15 from the preseason week, week 0 all the way up to now. And the show's going to lean heavily upon the CFP and the matchups. But Speaking of the matchups and the player we thought was going to be playing in the CFP, Caleb Williams. So before we left off to take our break from the Freshman 15, we tagged him as the Heisman candidate, like the Heisman guy, and he won the award. In hindsight, do you still think that he should have won the award?
Yeah, I mean, he had 47 touchdowns total. They ran a very efficient offense. Like, they're making up for their defense the whole time. It's typical like Pac-12 fashion. I don't want to dog on him too much, but he did what he had to do. He had him and with Jordan Addison. They balled out. They did what they had to do, and he was the best quarterback in the country when they needed to be.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think for them, it kind of fell short not making it into the CFP. But as far as from wire to wire, from start to finish, he was the best player in the country, and deservingly so, of the award that he got. And talking about kind of keeping it within the Pac-12, I kind of wanted to ask you about this too, right? Because we wanted to kind of talk about some news and notes, some highlights in between the break and now. And so the one thing that I saw, I'm a Cowboys fan, you're a Cowboys fan, Deion Sanders. So Deion Sanders makes the jump from Jackson State to Colorado. So I'm going to ask you this question. Is it a good or a bad move for him? And what type of collateral damage does that move have in college football?
Well, so we've seen, a lot of players are already going to try to transfer them because they want to, they see what he did at Jackson State for those players. They want to play for him because he seems like he's a player's coach. For him to jump to Colorado, I actually think it's a pretty good move because if you jump straight from like Jackson State to someone like his alma mater, like Florida State, you're risking something like maybe a Scott Frost kind of situation. Like, you don't know if he's going to be like, I'm not saying he's busting out or anything like that, but like, you have a lot of pressure on you for that certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And with Colorado, the expectations I would say are kind of low since they are like the bottom feeder in the Pac-12. But if they win half their games this first season, I'd say that would be a success. But I mean, they're putting a lot of pressure on his son to be. They already named him like one of the Heisman favorites for next year. I'm like, man, that's a lot. I mean, they're basically saying like he's gonna have like a Cam Newton season, which is gonna be pretty insane.
Yeah, man. And you know what? See, I never thought about them like kind of being the Vanderbilt of the West, but that's kind of what they are. Like you said, they've been the bottom feeder. For me, I think it's a good move, and it's based on timing. Now, I thought for Deion, right, he wanted to have a bigger job. Like, you want him to take like the USC or like the Florida State, like you said. And I think that was where I said, okay, Deion, just kind of wait it out, pick the bigger job instead of Colorado. And I didn't think he was going to take it at first. I was like, nah, that's not going to happen. But he did. And I think for him, it's all about the timing of the move. Because now you look at the conference shakeup, you have USC leaving the Pac-12, UCLA leaving the Pac-12. And that conference is always going to have a contender with Washington and Oregon. But I think just like you said, the magnetism of Deion Sanders to attract and draw players in, that tends to bring guys in. You're going to see a lot of guys go to Boulder to follow Deion Sanders. And I think he could kind of reign over that conference very, very soon in the next coming years. Now, here's kind of the downside. I'm not straddling the fence or nothing like that, but here's kind of the downside and why people called it a bad move. Our guy Dan also mentioned this as well, is that people think that, it's a bad move. And look, I understand he was at Jackson State. I get it. He's going from an HBCU where his whole point of being there was to help out the more or less fortunate and those that are overlooked, and actually, tell people in the country that these HBCUs, they matter. These schools matter. These players matter. So that within itself, I think, is kind of an honorable thing. And look, man, like my wife went to an HBCU, so I understand it and I get it. But I feel like with Deion, he proved all that he could in that program. He's already surpassed his level. And we know who Deion is. He's a competitor, man. He's prime time, and he's still coach prime time. So I think him proving it says I've done all that I can. I've surpassed this. Plus, if you really want to root for Deion Sanders, he wants to buck the system also. He wants to buck the trend. Yeah. So support him. If he wants to take down the Kirby Smarts, take down the Nick Sabans, this is how you do it. Mm-hmm. You take their guys from them at a bigger stage. So, hats off to Deion Sanders, man. So I think that's a good move. And for those that are opposed to it, it's to be continued. There's more to come from this. So hats off to Deion Sanders, man. But the reason why I brought you here to talk about the show tonight is the Final Four, the CFP, the big games that we have happening. So in the first game we have is going to be Michigan and TCU. This is in the Fiesta Bowl, right? The first game at 4:00 on Saturday, on New Year's Eve. Yep. So I kind of went back and saw this, right? This is crazy. So on one side you have, I think ESPN had put out a graphic this week or last week saying that teams like Iowa State, Auburn, and Nebraska, who are a combined 13-23, had a better chance by the odds makers to win the national title above TCU. Yet here they are. It's crazy, right? So they get the mercy of surviving their conference title game. They lose to Kansas State. Yeah. And it kind of feels like last year at Cincinnati, where they just here. I mean, they crashed the party. They end up in the CFP. Then on the other side, we have your hated rival, the Wolverines, who lost their Heisman candidate running back in Blake Corum, but they got pushed to the limit against Illinois. But overall, we're very consistent, and they managed to beat Ohio State in, let's say, convincing fashion.
Yeah.
At the shoot. So you have them kind of taking a step forward on offense in a multitude of different ways, but here they are. So with that stage set for TCU and Michigan, just kind of tell me, pick one matchup in that game you're looking to focus on.
Yeah, so it's going to be Max Duggan versus the Michigan front seven. Mainly because, Michigan, they made it hard for the Ohio State Buckeyes in the game on November 26th. You saw it, like they pushed and then it kind of just needless to say, that levee broke, like we talked about before. Like, they just kind of like broke their will, right? And that's on both sides of the ball, but mainly that defense, like that potent Ohio State offense couldn't do anything. But they really did that to teams all year. If you look at all of Michigan games,
yes, they did.
It was the same script almost all the way through. Like, cool, you may get something on us, but we're going to do the same thing over and over and over. It's the definition of insanity, but the way that Jim Harbaugh does it, they made it work for them this year. And, a defensive unit that can get home with just a front four against TCU. And, we've seen Duggan do it all year because he was in our upset specials. He was in all these things,
all the spotlights.
Time. He was in big game after big game, but he hasn't seen the defense, the size, speed, and strength of the Michigan Wolverines. Like, will he be able to read and make the adjustments that he has to do? Will he be able to slow down the pass rush by hitting screens and flats to like guys like Quentin Johnson's, like their speedster Darius Davis and running back Kendra Miller? Because like Davis, if they get the ball to Davis, he's the game changer. He is like the game changer because I think the stat I've seen, like he catches like 25% of his stuff in the flats because he's a home run hitter every single time. But he also unlike the other 25 are like his other 25% is like 20 plus yard receptions. But he leads the country in deep ball reception at 43.7 yards and 5 touchdowns. So it's like, get that man the ball, and it could. I mean, he like I said, he is the game changer. But that's what I'm looking for is Max Duggan versus the Michigan front seven.
So I kind of took the same branch a little bit, and the passing game makes a lot of sense, right? And the matchups on the outside are going to matter. Like you have Quentin Johnson, DJ Turner. That's going to be a battle. You're going to see that fight happen pretty much the entire day. And of course, Max Duggan, right? But the one thing that I thought about, and you said his name already, was Kendre Miller. And I think it speaks to who Michigan is and what their identity is. Yes, they push and push and push and push, but they also they stifle your running game, and that's really their objective, is to kill you on the ground first and beat you down in the trenches. So I know all the fanfare will go to Max Duggan, and of course talking about Quentin Johnson and the receivers. But I do think though that with Kendre Miller, you want to kind of stop him, because if you stop him, then all of a sudden they don't have that extra safety valve. And you saw a lot of like close, tight games this year. Go back and watch them. The guy that kind of saved the day at the last moment was Kendre Miller. Happened against Texas with the big run. So I do think that if you can offset their running game, you make them one-dimensional. And as you said, you pressure and pressure and pressure Max Duggan. So I think that's where I see it. So I'll kind of take it from here. But the question for me was for TCU, because I know we talked about how it looks like for Michigan. But the question I asked myself is, in order for TCU to win this game, they win the game if, and my answer was, you must stop Donovan Edwards. In the stead of Blake Corum, he's kind of stepped up. He's been that guy. He's emerged a lot. He's been really balling, man, honestly. Like, he's been really coming hot as of late. So I think if you don't stop him, then you open up the play action game, and all of a sudden this confident JJ McCarthy is killing you down the field with guys like Cornelius. So you can't have that happen at all. You must shut that down. Yeah. So I do think if TCU has a chance to win the game, you got to stop Donovan Edwards. But I'll flip the question to you. So Michigan wins this game if?
Oh, if they dominate in the trenches, it's over. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, because they are the bigger team. You know, it's almost like finesse versus powerhouse. It's like almost like Dallas Carter versus, you know, I don't know if you've seen the movie Friday Night Lights, like Odessa versus Dallas Carter. Dallas Carter's this huge team, and then, you know, they look like a bunch of NFL players, and you have like the TCU guys, and it's But yeah, if they win in the trenches, I think that's a wrap.
You know what? I don't know if I've ever made this reference on the show, but I remember years ago, man, and this is kind of off script, but years ago when I was a kid, like maybe like 17, 18, I remember talking to somebody. Can you remember back in the day we had all these bowl games and stuff like that? And, you know, you would have like the WAC and the MAC would come and play against a team in like the SEC or something like that. And of course, I know you remember Cole Brennan, right?
Yeah.
And I remember I was talking to a guy at work, older guy, and I asked him, I said, hey, what team do you think is going to get blown out in these bowl games? And he looked at me deadpan in the face. I'll never forget him. Great guy. He said, look out for Hawaii against Georgia. They're playing a team much bigger than them, much more physical than them. They recruit a lot better. Watch what happens. And of course, you saw it. It's like throwing like something like an apple into a wood chipper. And I think this game might be a runaway if you're not careful with TCU. It has that feel of a team that's a bit overmatched physically, athletically, almost in a three-dimensional standpoint, too, even maybe in coaching as well. Like, they might be just overmatched. I do think that they might have a puncher's shot, but I'm really feeling Michigan in this game, man. So,
yeah.
Now, question to you: do you want to pick the winners at the end for both games, or you kind of want to pick this one now?
Oh, we can do it at the end. That'd be a little more fun, yeah.
All right, well, so we'll hold off on that one then. All right, so let's flip to this part. This is your main course. So we have Georgia versus Ohio State in the Peach Bowl, the night game, which also I think should not be at the Georgia Dome. It feels so wrong, but it's college football.
Baby. Yeah.
I mean, fans travel, so I guess it doesn't really matter that much, right? So
it's gonna be like 95% Georgia. I mean, come on, man. 70 miles from Athens. Yeah,
Hey, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's funny though, because I went back and looked at this, and I think that these teams have a similar path to the CFP. Because both of them really kind of cruise their way throughout the entire season, except for Ohio State. They got tripped up at home against Michigan. But for the most part, both teams kind of walked through their conferences like it was nothing, like hot and life through butter. Like, it was really simple for them. So you have, you know, on one side, Georgia as well, who they're looking to repeat. They dominated most of the season. They blew out some teams that we thought might have came back to be contenders. I mean, you beat Georgia. You beat Tennessee. You handled Oregon early on. And both quarterbacks are candidates for the Heisman. So we have, I know how you feel about Stetson Bennett. I understand. We have your guy too, though, Stroud as well, who I think, like you said, he's taken so much growth without the help and the weapons throughout the course of the season. So also, it's a lot of star power on both sides of the ball. So for those that don't know, like, this is
these two teams are very similar. They're very similar. One's a 1A offense, and the other one has the 1A defense. So it's strength versus strength. So that's what's gonna be fun. But sorry to interrupt you.
No, but because I feel like this game should be the title game.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
if we
yeah.
had the BCS from back in the day, like this would be
Yeah.
the title. Well, I mean, Michigan fans might hate me for that one, but I'm just saying, like the matchup would be fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'll ask the question again, kind of in a similar sense. You pick one matchup in this game that you're going to focus on.
Okay, so CJ Stroud, he's by numbers, he's the most efficient quarterback in college football. Just by the way he played, he's the most efficient. He doesn't have Trayvon Henderson this game. He opted out. So did Jackson. Okay, so now that leaves Marvin Harrison Jr. and he is going up against one of the better corners in college football, in Keely Ringo. So Marvin Harrison Jr. He's a multifaceted guy. We heard Gus Johnson talk about it, and Reese Davis talk about it. You know, his speed, size, route running. He's the best receiver in the country at contested catches, and like it's over like 60% of the balls that he's thrown to is he catches them almost all the time. He plays 85% on the outside, so he's basically gonna be on the outside. So when you're matching him up with like your best corner in Ringo, he has trouble matching up with wide receivers one-on-one basically a lot of times, and he gets very handsy. He's had 8 penalties this year, and that's like a huge concern. But some stats I have on him, he's good. 473 coverage snaps, allowed 35 receptions on 64 targets, 478 yards, no touchdowns. But that defense just surrendered 500 yards to LSU. And I would put this Ohio State offense a couple tiers maybe above that LSU offense, because they're gonna come ready. They're gonna come ready to play. So like if say you put Ringo on the outside, but if you're gonna slide Marvin Harrison Jr. into the slot, who's gonna cover him? How are they gonna guard him? Well, they're gonna bring down Javon Bullard, one of the best safeties in the country. And how is that strictly how they're gonna guard him? But I think he's gonna be on the outside, and that's the matchup that I'm looking for. How Ryan Day uses Marvin Harrison Jr. against that good secondary of Georgia.
So I kind of took yours, and I kind of felt it, right? Because you talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. being that guy, right? That mismatch that nobody can handle, nobody can touch him. Like that old meme from Facebook, like the club cannot handle me right now. Yeah. That's him right now. Him and Stroud are like, their chemistry is unreal right now. And like you said, no Jackson Smith and Jigba, Travion Henderson sitting out this one. It's him and his guy, those two, firing back. And like you said, Kelly Ringo, I've seen him play. I think he's a pretty good corner. He is very physical, which, like you said, can be kind of handsy. But to kind of branch off what you're saying with a mismatch nightmare, and I talked about him a lot on the show, so you know who I want to talk about now, man, on the opposing side for Georgia is Brock Bowers, man.
Yeah.
I don't know what answer you have for that. And for those that don't know about Brock Bowers, he's that new age guy. I'm not going to say he's a Kelsey, but he's in the same factory. He's in the same prototype, the same assembly line.
Wally.
A Darren, 6'4", 230. He runs like a gazelle. He's big. He's fast. He's got the long speed, and there's really no answer for him. We talk about the Cowboys tight ends and how they're so multifaceted and they're really athletic. This guy can line up in any sense of the formation, jet sweeps, end arounds, screens. It does not matter. He can go. He can take off. He's a pain in the ass. So you must watch out for him, Brock Bowers. And it doesn't matter who you line up on him. I'm curious to see what you do, because you must treat him like a receiver.
Yeah. A
very hyper athletic tight end who can do a lot of different things. So it doesn't matter who's on him. Plus, they have another guy too, a tight end who's a giant. So it's they put you kind of at a disadvantage there. So we'll see how they handle that. But I think for me, that's my matchup to watch. So I'm going to flip the question to you, but I'll take this one first and I'll kind of set you up. So for me, the Bulldogs will win this game if, and in my mind, is if the front gets home. Simple as that. Again, star-studded talent on the defensive side. Jalen Carter, Robert Beal, Nolan Smith. They have a lot of juice and beef in the front seven.
Disgustingly good.
It's sickeningly good.
Yeah.
Sickeningly good.
Yeah.
Again, this is a scout's wet dream. If you're out there for this game, they have a lot going on up front. And again, if you can kind of force Stroud out of his comfort zone, and Stroud has been lights out, but if you can kind of flip the switch on him, I don't think, like you talked about the talent, I don't think you've seen a front like this just yet. They're very fast, very strong. If you can kind of force them to get off the spot a little bit, again, like you said, with Ringo and Harrison Jr., if you can kind of throw off their timing just a little bit, it may buy you some time to kind of get them off their offense. And I think it's all about maybe a turnover here and there, getting the ball back to your offense. The quarterback that you don't like for some reason. But I think for the most part, they'd be pretty good. They can kind of get some stops. And again, the front seven kind of take this game by storm. But I'll flip the question to you, man. So it's your team, your day. So the Buckeyes win this game to move on into the national title if they do blank.
So I know I highlighted the Marvin Harrison Jr. thing, but it's going to be one of the two other receivers that are going to have to step up, I believe. So it's going to be Ibuka or Fleming, and I have a feeling it's going to be Fleming. I think Fleming's going to have a 150-yard game, and then Mayan Williams is playing, and I'm going to say he goes for $125, and they. I'm going to say, okay. So the next part, I'm going to say the Buckeyes win this game, 34-30.
34th. That's it. All right. Listen, I do think ultimately what they want the rematch. They want the game to be the rematch for the national title. I do believe that. But I will say this. You talked about Kelly Ringo and Marvin Harrison Jr. I think it's going to come down to one key play, one controversial play that we think might go against the Buckeyes. I'll be honest, it might go against the Buckeyes, but I think Stetson Bennett gets enough chances and he finishes in the red zone. You see the mobility that he does not get credit for, rears its head, and I think the Bulldogs win, man. I think the Bulldogs win by a score of, I want to say 27-23. It's going to be a lot more low scoring than we think, and also it's because your guys are not playing. And what? Again, if I can ask this question, why are your guys not playing in the CFP?
I know Jackson is just like, he's basically just looking towards the future, and same thing with Travion. They've been hurt all season, and they're prepping for draft. So
take the ring, man.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what?
It's the new age guys. I'm not gonna hate them. They're making their money. That's their future. But I would love to see them play. But I understand too. So
I think it's gonna bite them, man. I really do, and I think that kind of talent is talent. I know you guys are one of the best at producing receiver talent. Shout out to you, Brian Hartline. But I do think that's gonna matter against this team with this defense and this ferocious front, and guys that get open just like that. So I do think it edges them, and I'm gonna say 27-23. Dogs. Now, the first game that we had, kind of anticlimactic here. So we have the Horned Frogs against the Wolverines. Give me your score in that game.
Okay, I'm going to take the Wolverines. I'm going to say 38-17. I'm just saying, man.
I'm telling you, man, apple inside of a wood chipper. I feel like this is a team that, and look, I'm going to be honest here too, whether or not, and this might be controversial or not, whether or not it was TCU or whether or not it was USC, I feel like those teams are flawed enough that facing a team like this was going to be to their detriment anyway. Mm-hmm. And I think that it didn't matter who it was. If it was TCU, I think they're going to be a little bit outclassed. So I'm saying a score of 38-17. Nah, I mean, okay, I'll say maybe 38-20 or 41-20, something like that. I do think between 18 to 20 points, 18 to 21 points. I just think that you're playing a team where you're not going to see a front dominate you like this. And a team that, like you said, get pressure with the front four and be able to kind of hold you down. I do think that they need someone to run the ball, and I don't see it happening. They're just way too good up front. And again, Donovan Edwards has been kicking ass in the stead of Blake Corum. So I do think it's a big time win. So, maybe next time on the show, maybe we talk about our matchup here in the following week. But looks like you're saying,
let's go.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking Bulldogs and Wolverines. So we'll see, man. We'll see. But other than that, man, any last thoughts before we wrap up here on the Freshman 15?
No, man, I'm excited for this weekend. And if you guys didn't know, our boy here, LP, he does Blogging the Boys content. So you can slide over, get some Blogging the Boys content on Sports Nation and give him a follow on there.
I appreciate it, man, guys. At SDQ Flight Crew, this has been my man Tyler, and you are where?
I'm at Cryptic Ghost 2 on Twitter. And that's where you can find me.
So, man, check us out, man. You know, Blogging the Boys on Film Around and Find Out. Film finds all the time. And I promise, guys, here, my loyal listeners to Stonehall Sports, I will be back doing more Cowboy stuff. But other than that, man, guys, once again, thank you for watching. If you like the video, love college football like we do, hit that like, hit that sub button. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, wherever you can find us. We're here. As always, thanks for watching, and peace.
Peace.